Good morning. It's 10 a.m. It's Tuesday. Well, let's get going. Got a couple of announcements. Annual celebration on Sunday. We'll have pizza. Bring some fixins with you, some desserts. It'll be a great time as we reflect on what the Lord did last year and talk about the stuff that's going to happen this year. I'm really excited about what we've kind of planned for the time together. I hope you'll plan to be here. There's some exciting updates on some stuff that will be really good for you to hear and know. So plan to be here for pizza and whatever else. Hopefully there's some tasty treats. I'm sure there will be. There always are. We may be a non-denominational church, but we like potlucks like the Baptists. So that's coming up. And then night of worship on 3/4. That would be Friday evening. I didn't put the time on there. So you can hear in the announcements what time it's at, or you can call the church, or maybe we will post a link or a thing on Facebook for it. Anyhow, I hope you'll plan to be there. And then on 3/10, we're going to have a blood drive at the church property. We hope you'll plan to come for that. Hopefully I still have the link saved on my... Oh, I didn't save it. So I will come back later and put the link in the chat. Thank you, Allison. 7 p.m. for night of worship. So we hope you'll sign up for the blood drive thingy-mabobber, CRP. Let's see if I can just pull it up right now. I had it saved. I had the link saved, and then I I copied something else. So let's go. Boom, boom, boom. All right. We are the only one on 310. So here you go. We're going to throw this in the chat. We'd love for you to sign up for this. So that way we're shooting for 19 people. That's what our goal is. We had 13 last year. We'd love to have more this year. We'd love for it to be well worth their time for them to come out so we can donate blood. It's a great way to help the community. In our region, it's valuable and needed. So I hope you'll plan to participate in all those things. So did that work as an actual link? I can't click on it from my side, but maybe you guys can, and you can tell me if it works. But don't do it if it takes you away from this. So what I wanted to do, we're going to continue on this week. And with the just really kind of prefacing what as we look at the book of Revelation, what we can learn from it. I've again affectionately titled this, Are You Ready? And what does the book of Revelation teach us for everyday life? What can the believer gain from the book of Revelation? Now, one thing I want us to consider before we jump into it is that there are a variety of interpretive perspectives of the book of Revelation. So, and then aspects of those interpretations of various facets of it. So what do we do with all of those? And should we let those hang us up in our application of the book? As we come to Revelation, I want us to, I want this to be us to look at it in such a way that no matter what perspective we come from, no matter what idea we think about it, we can see how it is profitable for our everyday lives, and profitable for us at all times. So the book of Revelation was given to us by God for a purpose, and the purpose being to help us to persevere and trust that Jesus wins. And so today I want to talk about kind of some of the different views. Frankly, I'm kind of I'll make my joke later. Frankly, I just want us to say, okay, what can we glean from this, regardless of the perspectives we take? Because there are a variety of perspectives when it comes to the book of Revelation. There is probably more interpretive debate about the book of Revelation than any other book in the Bible. I can't quote you a statistical percentage on that or averages, but I would say it is the one that elicits the greatest degree of different perspectives. And so how can we, if we find ourselves in those differing perspectives, how can we still, at the same time, regardless of which one we hold to, still apply it for everyday life? Because there are perspectives that say that it all occurred prior to the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. And then there are perspectives that say it's all in the future still. None of it's occurred yet. So the first one, that would be the Preterist view, which is it all occurred before AD 70, and John is actually prophesying, or Jesus is giving John this prophecy, this image of what will happen at the fall of Jerusalem. That's not a very popular theory anymore. It was at one point in time, but it's really not anymore. And there's not a ton of people that hold to it, but maybe maybe someone does. And then there's the futurist view that says it's all in the future. It hasn't happened yet. And then there's kind of different perspectives within that. There's other views that's kind of like the idealist view. I've got this fancy commentary, which if you are looking for a awesome commentary set to have on your bookshelf, that's just kind of really it's scholarly, but it's accessible and it'll help you understand the Bible. The Crossway has this expository commentary set, and it's like, I think it's going to be well, this is the last volume, so it's going to be 12 volumes in total. They're not all out yet, but they are worth grabbing if you want a commentary set to have on your bookshelf. They are worth the cost. They're fantastic. Easy starter primer on biblical interpretation, and they look beautiful, right? Like, I am normally let's get the digital version of commentaries because it's just so much easier to use them, but these are so pretty that I just want them on my shelf. So I've got 5 of them so far, and there's a couple more that are out now that I haven't gotten yet. They just keep adding them in. My personal book budget isn't big enough. So what are some of the varying views of, where did it go? I turned away, I closed the page, and now I can't find it, and I didn't put my marker on it. So, yes. Okay. So there are kind of 4 primary interpretive perspectives of Revelation. And then there are, within that, there are some subsets of interpretive principles of aspects of the book of Revelation. So, the Preterist view is everything happened before the fall of Jerusalem. John is writing before the fall of Jerusalem. Jesus is giving him a prophecy through apocalyptic imagery of what's going to occur at the fall of Jerusalem. And that, like I said, that's not a view that's really well held anymore. Another view is called the Idealist View. And the Idealist View is really just kind of trying to, okay, what are the principles that Revelation is trying to give us? What are the overarching ideas that this book is trying to give us? Then there's a historicist. Good grief. Sometimes you try to say words and they just don't come out. And it's trying to give us this is fulfilled throughout church history. And they interpret the letters to the 7 churches as 7 different church ages. So church number 1 is meant to reflect a specific time frame. Church number 2 is meant to reflect a different time frame, and then so on. And then it's really applying it to a historical kind of trying to figure out how we connect this to historical time periods. That also isn't the very popular view these days. Not that popularity makes it the right or wrong interpretation, but then there's a 4th interpretation, and that is the futurist view, where it's mainly everything that is occurring in the book of Revelation is happening in the future. And so you've got different views and different perspectives of what is what's happening. And you have people who might be like, okay, I think part of it happened already and part of it hasn't happened yet. You have people who take bits and pieces of it. So it's not as clear-cut as some people might want to make it. So in the futurist view, you tend to have you have dispensationalism, and then you have historic premillennialism, and then you have these other viewpoints and perspectives. And so within interpretation of Revelation, there's also, what do we do with the millennium? When does the millennium occur? And there's kind of three views. And one of the views kind of splits out into two. There's historic premillennialism, which says that there is going to be a millennial reign of Christ. And that view then gets split into two, where you have a dispensational understanding of it. And then you have a non-dispensational view of it. And then you have what's called postmillennialism, which says that we are currently in the millennium, and the millennium is not intended to be interpreted as a literal 1,000-year reign. Historic premillennialists and dispensationalists would all so premillennialism is one view, and historic premillennialism is one perspective, and dispensationalism is another. And both those views would say that you take the 1,000-year reign that is referenced in Revelation as a literal 1,000 years. And then you have postmillennialism that says that the church ushers in the coming of Christ through its progressively overcoming the world through its witness, and the world becoming increasingly more godlike, or not godlike, but in reflection of God's character and God's standards. That view was popular in kind of the late 1800s and then the early 1900s. And then some big things happened in 1916. 1916, because Spanish flu happened in 1918, which was men coming home from World War I. And so, because they saw this progressive, like, society getting better, life is getting better. And so they thought, oh, the kingdom's being ushered in by the millennial kingdom is being ushered in by the church through the spreading of the gospel. And then everything goes haywire with World War I. And then you have the Spanish flu, and then you have Great Depression, and then you have World War II, and so that view kind of fell out of favor, out of fashion, and it really it's not a primary view anymore. And then there's another view called Amillennialism, which says that essentially just that you don't take the 1,000-year reign as a literal 1,000 years. So it's being not millennium, and so trying to say that you take the millennium as a symbolic perspective. So that would be kind of a quick overview of the varying views. And what I joke, my perspective is I'm a pan-millennialist. I say it's all going to pan out. It's all going to work out exactly the way Jesus wants to, exactly when Jesus wants to, and however he sees fit. So what if that, like, that would be my general perspective. We can get lost in the weeds. We can get lost in the minutia, the details. We can get so focused on the tree that we miss the forest. So what I want us to do as we consider the book of Revelation is to consider it from big picture perspective. What does this mean for us here and now, regardless of what our interpretive principles are for the book of Revelation? How can we, whether you're an amillennialist or a premillennialist or a postmillennialist, what can we glean from the book of Revelation? If we were if we had those three different views and we were sitting down at the table, what could we uniformly agree would be, what can we glean from it? Or if we take an idealist or a futurist view, what can we glean from that? Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think there's preferable interpretations of the book of Revelation. I think there are, but I'm not sure they matter. Ultimately, they might, and you might think this is really important, and John needs to understand why this is important. If that's your perspective and you want to have a conversation, I'd love to have a conversation about it. Not something I want to argue about, though. So what can we do with the book of Revelation? And so that's what we're going to start going through and considering. And so I wanted us to have this kind of setting forth of, what is our overarching perspective in this study of looking at the book of Revelation. We'll kind of go through it piece by piece. Next week, I think we'll talk about kind of the major theological themes that are present in the book of Revelation that we can glean from, and then we'll progress through maybe chapters at a time. Well, I think the chapters 2 and 3 will probably hit a church each week, but then maybe like chapter 4, we'll just highlight a couple verses and say, hey, how does this apply to the those big theological themes, and how can we learn from it? So this is that's kind of the plan going forward. I hope that's exciting to you to take a deeper dive at this book. One thing that comes to my mind is the book of Revelation actually says in verse 3, blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near. So it's clearly meant for our benefit here and now. And so let's consider it and think about how we can apply it to our lives, regardless of what interpretive principle we apply to it, because I think it is valuable for us here and now, and we should glean from it and learn from it. So I hope you have a great week, friends. If you need anything, let us know. I hope to see you on Sunday for the worship service, and for the annual celebration. And then I hope you'll join us for worship service, or not worship service, night of worship. So, okay, have a great week, and I'll see you Sunday.